In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, please be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, January 16th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please rise to salute the flag.
Salute the flag, United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just wait a second, our committee will approve this. I didn't even know she was. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Prupus? Here. Mr. Sacamandi?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the December 19th, 2023 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye. Any abstentions?
Oh, yes, abstain.
May I have a motion to approve the December 19th, 2023 Special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Yes, right.
Yeah, abstain.
Okay, we'll go into reports. Does any committee member have any reports? We could start with Committeeman Stoller.
Sure.
Okay. So I'm on 6 committees. I'm gonna go through the 3 committees that met so far. It's on, can you guys hear me now? Like Verizon commercial. So 6 committees, I'm gonna go through the first committee, 3 committees I've been on and gone to. The first is a Recreation Commission update. First is the Taylor Park Playground, Green Acres application. I see the gentleman here. I'm gonna go through that, seeking permission to apply for a Green Acres grant to renovate the Taylor Park Playground. I'm not gonna steal their thunder. I'm sure they'll do a great job. We talked about the Bower Community Center Assembly Room renovation. That project should be completed by February. The gymnasium will include lines for youth basketball and volleyball, as well as pickleball courts and badminton. We talked about a cricket pitch. We're investigating the locations for use of the temporary cricket pitch. We're in discussions with the BOE about utilizing a rollout pitch, which is basically a mat for the Glenwood School, as well as some other places. And then good news on pickleball courts at Giro Park. They're going to bring forward a contract today to set up in a pre-construction meeting with the contractor in hopes that the project can begin as soon as possible. Flood mitigation, had a great meeting there, drinking from a fire hose. First, they want me to thank all the residents, provided valuable information and assistance on issues and improvements and helping drive them to completion. They received positive feedback along Ridgewood and Locust Roads in South Mountain on the drainage project that was completed last fall with the notable improved drainage. The township is working along Ridgewood Road and Greenwood Drive to secure their approvals for the same type of drainage improvement. If approvals can be secured, the project will be completed this year. And then a special thank you to Tom Doty and the DPW team for accelerating the completion of the upgrade to the Gilbert Storm Water Pump. This was completed during the last storm, and the pump can now operate even during power outages. And then the last committee is the SID, the Business Improvement District Update. They worked with the township to prepare businesses for potential flooding. I got to see that firsthand as Steve and Amanda sent out multiple emails and social media communications, and also handed out over 100 sandbags to local businesses, of which I got to help put some in the back alleys over on the Upper Milburn Avenue. Luckily, the river did not breach its walls and there was no damage, but the type of outreach was good, and I know the businesses appreciated it. The first actual meeting is on Thursday at 6:30 p.m. Everyone's welcome. It will be offered via Zoom. If you want to attend, you can go to www.exploremilburnshorthills.org. The Chamber of Commerce is offering an event, Coffee with the Chamber of Commerce. That's at 8:30 on Friday at the Christopher Peacock Design Studio. And then Restaurant Week 2024 is March 17th through the 23rd, with over 30 participating restaurants in town. We have not had a dispatch joint meeting yet or a joint fields meeting yet. That's my update.
Thank you. Committeeman Cullen?
Sure. Actually, on the planning board, it was mostly a reorg meeting, but I think one of the things that we agreed upon was that we were going to open the meetings to, that we're going to open the meetings to allow Zoom participation going forward. So I believe that should be effective with the meeting that is tomorrow night, where on the agenda will be a discussion of the draft of the open space element of the master plan. So that's the public meeting for that. And also coming on the agenda for that tomorrow night, the Silverman property, also known as 85 Woodland Road, is coming back. They were there 2 years ago. They're coming ostensibly to talk about an additional variance required by them because of their transformer placement with JCP&L, but I'm not sure that that's the only thing that'll be discussed with that. So we'll have to see about that. Not related to one of the boards, a resident reached out to me to bring up the subject of looking at a policy on gas-powered leaf blowers. And we've talked about it in pairs, as we're allowed to do on the committee. There is consensus to move ahead with that. We're going to bring that to the Environmental Commission to take a look at it. And they will come up with a proposal that then we can review. While just so you know, while in general that seems like it would be something everybody would be in favor of, other towns have tried it, and then people had difficulty finding someone to landscape their property. So we'll see. You know, I think it's a good idea. They're certainly noisy, but we'll have to see, what's the best way to handle that. Lastly, one of the things that we'll be working on over the course of the year, at the reorg meeting, all the appointments were made and whatnot, but as we were meeting as a group to come up with those appointments, one of the things that we looked at is we would like to change where possible, and they're not all possible, to change the appointment process to make as many of them as possible be based on the consent of all 5 members of the Township Committee, instead of being either mayoral appointments strictly, like, for example, the Art Advisory Commission. That should be something that all 5 of us agree on and or propose, as well as the ones that are mayoral with TC consent. Wherever possible, we'd like them to all be the result of the work done by all 5 members of the Township Committee. So there'll be various resolutions or ordinances to put that forward over the course of the year. The goal is to get that done before June, when there's the next primary, so that it doesn't devolve into who might be the mayor next year. We want to get that all done ahead of that, so that's not part of the discussion. That's it.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Sacamendi?
Yes, two updates tonight. So first, continuing to work on creating an affordable housing advisory committee. We're still figuring out what the exact role for the committee will be, but we plan to have something on the agenda next meeting. The Historic Preservation Commission met on January 4th and conducted their reorganization. Allison Canfield was reelected to be the chair. Several residents showed up to express their dismay at how the HPC nomination process played out last year. Members of the commission heard the concerns voiced by the residents and committed to work harder to earn their trust and educate the community prior to taking official action in the nomination process. The HPC chair also mentioned that they are looking into the feasibility of property tax breaks or relief for residents whose property resides in historic districts.
Thank you. Committeewoman Krupas?
No reports.
Okay, I just want to again thank the Millburn Fire, Police, DPW, Mr. McDonald, Mr. Hoffman and the staff at Town Hall for all the incredible work that went into preparing for the storm Tuesday night. I spent a couple of hours with them on Tuesday night and I was fascinated by what went into preparing for Tuesday night. So we're lucky that we have the crew that we do. I also would also like to read another statement. At our last meeting, shortly after I took the dais as mayor, I was asked by a few residents if I would consider stepping down as chairwoman of the Millburn Short Hills Democratic Committee. Truth be told, when I was sworn into the Township Committee in 2023, I did consider stepping down as chairwoman, but I decided I was going to finish out my term, which is expiring in June of this year. While it is not necessarily uncommon for a mayor in a town to also be a party chair, it's happened in this town. Both responsibilities have very high demands. I chose to make you, the residents of Millburn Short Hills, my top priority. Therefore, effective immediately, I will no longer be the chair of the Millburn Short Hills Democratic Committee. Vice Chair Michael Bolt has agreed to assume the duties of chairman. As I said at the last meeting, the time for politics is over and the time for governing has begun. Again, I look forward to serving all the residents of Millburn Short Hills as your mayor, and I look forward to working with my colleagues to make our town the best that it can be. Thank you. Okay, public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. McDonald.
Just three brief reports. First and foremost, just letting at a committee meeting at the end of last year, the committee agreed to do a staffing analysis of the Millburn Police Department. That staffing analysis is due back tomorrow for RFPs. Once we've received them, we will review them and alert the Township Committee to those responses. But that's in full motion and we will be receiving those tomorrow. Just an update on PSE&G for the public, particularly the Washington section. Last Friday, there was quite the confluence of things going on at the intersection of Millburn Avenue and Spring Street. And I think in that particular intersection, there was Verizon, PSE&G, the development at the old Wells Fargo, as well as a company trying to do fiber down Millburn Avenue. It created quite a mess. We were alerted by PSE&G that they need to do work in that intersection to connect all of the work that they've been doing in the Washington section with upgraded infrastructure to the main that runs down Millburn Avenue. It's quite a large main, a 24-inch main for the gas company. And we've asked them to do that work when it starts, which is anticipated to be in about 2 weeks, that work will be done at night to reduce the impact on traffic and reduce the impact on the businesses in the downtown area. So just wanted to alert the residents to that. Also, it is anticipated that PSE&G is done with trenching in the Washington section. However, they will be doing services. So individual home services up Willow and up Spring Street will take place. It is anticipated that it'll take about 15 days, a lot less intrusive and impactful sort of operation. They dig a hole out in front of the home and connect the service line to the main line that they just installed in Spring and Willow. But additional information will be going out to the public on that, as well as residents should have already been notified by PSE&G about their need to be involved in that service replacement to the home on those streets. And lastly, last Thursday, a notice went in the paper regarding the township's home elevation grant application for 3 homes on Ridgewood Road to potentially receive grant funding through FEMA for the elevation of those homes. The ball is rolling on this. We responded to a request for information from FEMA, and we anticipate hearing from them about the award of that grant for the elevation of 3 homes that are considered repetitive loss or severe repetitive loss homes, which is a really good step in terms of flood mitigation and protecting the property and lives of those people down there. So just wanted to report on that.
Thank you. Okay, public comment. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Millburn Township resident and/or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you called in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put in the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not a time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Good evening. My name is Scott Henning. I'm a member of the town. I'm a resident of Millburn Short Hills. I'm a taxpayer. I'm a registered voter. And additionally, I'm a disabled combat veteran. I served 15 years in the United States Army. I served this country honorably. I have a deep love for this country and this town. I am here to tell you that I volunteered to serve on the HPC, as I know some other members of my little area did. I was not chosen. I understand. I have no more qualifications than what I just told you. I live here, I love it, and I've served before. I'm disappointed with the actions of the HPC and the reappointment of Ms. Canfield and the other members that were put on that committee. I'm very disappointed, and I'm frankly disillusioned by that, because as a person who loves this country, I love democratic process. There's no democratic process there. Those are appointed people. I didn't vote for them. I voted for all of you. And I'm here to remind you, you don't serve your party. You don't serve anything else. You serve me and everybody else here. And I hope you prove me wrong, but I'm not confident there's going to be a lot of change. Please prove me wrong.
Thank you, and thank you for your service.
I'm Ritesh Singh. I'm a resident of Short Hills as well. And my concern or comment is on the same topic. The HPC process has been extremely disappointing. It has been willfully misleading. And the point I'm making today is that if somebody willfully misleads the Planning Commission, they are given a task. HPC on November of 22 was told to do public outreach, was told by Planning Commission to bring evidence that this will benefit homeowners. In August 16th meeting of 2023, they came to this Planning Commission and gave them misleading information. They said directly on video that they cited a study from University of Pennsylvania, and I have that study right here in front of me, that there are economic benefits. And I'm going to read the finding 1 of that study, which says various aspects of historic preservations have substantial benefits and economic costs. benefits are imperfectly understood. They were asked to bring benefits. I went to their FAQ, looked at the benefits, the things they have posted. There is nothing. So people stood in front of planning commission. They gave the misleading information. Based on that, some decision was taken. And planning commission, I mean, if I'm in the planning commission and I'm asked, tell me, will homeowners benefit? Yes, they will benefit. Here is the PhD from UPenn telling us that. And you lied. You came here and you just lied about that. It's on video. Then what do you do? I think the whole process goes back. Throughout the whole process, start from scratch. Because it's on video. The PhD from UPenn is mentioned. That report is there. It says nothing about homeowners benefiting. So my suggestion here is that we go ahead and say nullify the whole process. Whole thing starts from scratch if they want to do it in the right manner. We all agree there should be public outreach. That has not happened. So that's the only comment I have. Please nullify this process, start from scratch. If you want to do it again, do it the right way without any of these reports, which it's a finding one. And they're standing here and saying there is economic benefit to homeowners. Thank you.
Thank you. Should we, anyone on the line? Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I hope I'm in the right meeting. I'm here to talk about leaf blowers and other lawn equipment.
Sure you are.
Okay, all right. I'm Gary Schilling. I'm a PhD economist. I run an economic consulting and investment advisory firm. My wife and I reside at 33 Lakeview Avenue, Short Hills. We've been there since 1968, 56 years, same house. Our 4 kids are all grown and gone, although they and our 8 grandchildren occasionally come back. Now, I'm a heavy duty do-it-yourselfer, and I love to be outside in our yard and gardens. I also have an overgrown hobby of beekeeping. But from March through Christmas, the loud whine of gasoline-powered leaf blowers, weed whackers, chainsaws, and mowers, which carry at least a quarter of a mile, make it nearly impossible to hear the friendly buzz of my honeybees. Two-stroke gasoline engines that power most of this equipment burn oil and gasoline. They're extremely dirty. They have no catalytic converters and are extremely inefficient. Running a gasoline leaf blower for an hour is equivalent to running a car for 8 hours and driving 300 miles. With all the noise and pollution, the days of enjoying peace and quiet of the outdoors are long gone. After the pandemic forced many people to stay home, many are equally troubled and demanding shifts into much quieter electric equipment. Over 100 local governments nationwide have restrictions on gas-powered lawn equipment, including nearby communities, Maplewood, Montclair, Princeton, and South Orange. Why don't we? We certainly can afford it. Short Hills has the 3rd highest income per capita of any zip code in the country. Now, leaves don't need to be blown into the streets, requiring the township to remove them at taxpayer expense. Leaves make great compost for flower beds and shrubs and aid many beneficial creatures. They also reduce the need for commercial fertilizer. An increasing number of Americans, including me, leave them on the lawn and chop them up with electric mulching mowers. Article on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, and I have copies here. This was in the December 29th, 1923 edition. How do I give these out?
You could just leave them up front.
Your copies and copies for anyone in the audience who's interested. They talk about this article. Excuse me. This talks about people who leave their leaves on the lawn, cut them up, use them to mulch shrubs and flower beds, and of course that cuts down on the use of commercial fertilizer. Now there's a clear trend in lawn equipment toward quieter, pollution-free electric leaf blowers, weed whackers, mowers, and chainsaws. Homeowners are leading the way, but last year, 35% of landscapers purchased battery-operated outdoor power equipment, up from 3% in 2016, only 7 years earlier, according to experts at Farnsworth Group. Some 75% of landscapers own electric power blowers. This echoes the growing number of electric vehicles. Anybody here own an electric vehicle?
I'm sorry, sir, your 3 minutes is up.
I'm sorry?
Your 3 minutes is up.
I'm sorry.
There is a 3-minute time limit for public comment.
Oh,
There's a time limit for public comment.
okay. Electric outdoor equipment. What? I can't keep talking?
No, because there's other people that want to speak.
All right.
I'm sorry.
Oh, all right, okay.
But you can leave your material and we'll
Yeah,
we'll
okay,
share it.
and just here's a comparison of costs. And electric equipment is cheaper. But a lot of landscapers are not really conversant with that. They're like a lot of people, slow to make changes.
You can also attend the Environmental Commission meeting and you can speak with them.
When's that?
Next Tuesday?
I'm sorry?
Next Tuesday.
Next Tuesday here.
If you leave your information, I'll reach out to you and give you it.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Rita DeBroa. I've been living in Melbourne Short Hills since 2011. We moved from Maplewood. I have 3 kids going through the school system. I'd like to voice my disappointment also at the election of the HPC committee members and why they chose not to include anyone from the affected homeowners, although I understand multiple individuals did apply. So not sure why they did not include anyone. And I'm also disgusted by the way the whole nomination process was handled without any homeowners' input. And I agree with previous comments that the nomination should be nullified and started again with the homeowners' input because it does affect our properties and our investment in this town and our lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Charlie Bambara, 27-year resident of Melbourne Short Hills. I'm here to talk about pedestrian safety. That's why I have this vest on. It's dark early this time of year, and I've seen no end of people walking around in dark outfits with no reflection, no nothing. And I've seen cars pass within 2 or 3 feet of them without even slowing down. This costs $17 in Home Depot, if anybody wants to buy one. But it is very visible. You can get yellow or orange, but I would recommend folks that are outside walking their dogs. I have something like this for my dog also. Wear reflective clothing, wear a reflective vest. At least if you don't have that, wear something light, white, so cars can see you. But we don't seem to have an ordinance about staying clear of pedestrians walking on the side of the road. Is there such a thing? I know there's an ordinance on highways where if there's a vehicle parked on the side of the road, and you're supposed to, if you can, move over and give them clearance. But I wonder why we don't do that for pedestrians. And especially, I've seen families walking with children or walking with a pet, and they're very unpredictable. They can dart out. These cars have no business being within a couple of feet of them. I don't know if there's an ordinance that can even be enforced for something like that, but that's my suggestion. And I don't know if there is a pedestrian safety month. If there isn't, I would propose that we have one and call public attention to it one of these months where it gets dark early, maybe December, January, or February. That's all I have to offer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, good evening. David Elephant from Short Hills, a 30-year plus resident. It's my understanding that there are a minimum of 3 property owners who have applied online interest forms for HPC that were not selected. It appears that the TC has actually selected an individual to be a voting member, it appears, who is not a property owner. That same individual does not pay real estate tax. And it appears that that individual presumably has never hired an architectural firm to prepare drawings or contractors to perform work or maintenance, or ever hired an attorney to buy a house or to maybe submit a protest about a nomination regarding HPC. And yet others from this community who have vested interest have been ignored. As such, many people in the community are now questioning the integrity of the selection process. They are questioning perhaps the judgment of the TC and the decision-making capabilities that you have. I know that Ben and Frank, you won on an election platform of transparency. And I know, Tara, that you have prominently supported their candidacy. I think it's appropriate for a full, transparent investigation should take place regarding this process, beginning with the online portal. Who is the portal administrator? How many online forms did you receive? Why were none of these individuals receive back an email acknowledging their submission? They've never been contacted, that their name was even received or considered. Transparency, that's what you 2 gentlemen spoke about. Tara, you supported them. I'm sure we're all about transparency. We need to hear and see the transcripts of your conversation about who was considered for HPC. How did you vote? Why? Tell us, why were these people ignored, not selected, and why did you select the individuals that you did? And in the meantime, my neighbors have asked for everything to be null and void. I think you're pushing people away. Your actions are pushing people away. And I know that's not what you want, and it's certainly not what the community wants. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Very good. Thank you.
Good evening, Diane Eglow. Congratulations, Annette. Welcome, Ben and Frank. The Paper Mill Playhouse is asking the town for an outright $7.5 million. The township purchased the paper mill for $9 million in 2008. I've read the contracts. And according to my source, this was a bailout with the ultimate goal for them to become self-sufficient and run their own organization. The contract is a triple net lease, a commercial lease where the leasee, the paper mill, pays rent, utilities, as well as insurance, maintenance, and taxes. The paper mill is a nonprofit, so the township receives no taxes. There's a detailed rent agreement with an escalating payment schedule for rent, and they are now also asking to revise the contract to no longer pay that rent to the township. To date, $1.2 million has been put aside in escrow from past rent. Excuse me? In the original contract, number 7, little number V, a maintenance escrow is to be maintained by the seller in accordance with the lease. I do not know if this is separate money set aside, but several years ago, future rent was then put into the township's general fund. The paper mill just purchased the adjacent property for $1.8 million and are asking for that to be reimbursed after the fact. How will that new parking revenue be accounted for? Article 5, services and maintenance. The leasee shall at leasee's sole cost and expense keep the premises and every part thereof in good condition working order, repair, structural, heating, AC, parking lots, etc. The leasee's obligation shall include restorations and replacements. Section 5.02, has the leasee provided a maintenance plan every calendar year to the township as required by the contract? Now we hear the building is in dire disrepair and requires millions of dollars in repairs and upgrades, leaking roof, failing HVAC, etc. Why hasn't this been maintained? Why has the board allowed the building to degrade? Section 5.05, the leaser, the township, is not responsible for repairing, replacement, or performing any maintenance on the premises. Why is the retaining wall about to fall into the river and, God forbid, be the cause of catastrophic flooding downtown and in neighborhoods? Haven't we suffered enough losses? We got very lucky the past 2 major rain events. Why should they stop paying rent and ask for $7.5 million for a vanity project? Imagine what $7.5 million of taxpayer dollars could do for the township and the taxpayers. Mr. Stotz and Mr. Hobie each have salaries of $350,000. No township employees have that kind of salary. That was the board's decision. The board has raised over $20 million for their $40 million wish list. The board should use that money to do what must be done and what hasn't been kept up for 15 years. Look at the finest theaters on Broadway with original historic facades. It's what's inside the theater that matters. Does the historic paper mill really need a 4-story glass atrium? Do they need a huge lobby so theater goers can find their people during intermission, as was mentioned? Again, there was never transparency in all the years leading up to this outrageous proposal. Alex, you have always said you're a non-voting member on their board. I'll be 1 more minute. Section 1610, the leasee board representative states, the lessor, the township, shall be permitted to have a representative of the leaser, the township, sit on the board as a voting member at all times. Alex, if you attended these boards meetings, why didn't you vote and share this $40 million proposal that must have been in the works for several years?
Thank you, Ms.
Wait,
Segall, I'm sorry.
Annette, you gave
Yeah,
the people another minute, please.
Yeah, but you've
What
gone
a
a little bit
surprise.
longer than that.
And to see, okay, I'm gonna read the last sentence. The paper mill is an asset owned by the town. I believe a full accounting must be made public before any public funds are allocated by 4 TC members vote to issue this $7.5 million bond. You all received tickets to the paper mill.
It's not true.
Oh, they took that away? Oh, okay, well, anyway.
Thank you, Ms. Segall. Thank
You're
you.
welcome, and
Thank you.
congratulations on becoming mayor, Annette. I know
Thank
it's
you.
been a very long dream for you. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Richard Cyber, town resident. Few things. One, a lot of people tonight talked about interested parties wanted to sit on committees, but weren't chosen, weren't notified. I think it's wrong. One thing I think that's important is the voter registry in the town. I believe there's a lot of people that are on the registry, don't live here, don't vote here. A lot of people are dead still on it. When Ben and Frank ran, they wanted to move towards a nonpartisan government. To do that, you need to get so many signatures of registered voters, a percentage of the total amount. If the total amount of registered voters isn't correct, then how could you actually get anything done? So we have this great guy in town. His name is Steve Grillo. Why don't we give him that job? Figure out how to figure it out. I thought about it. You could contact Steve Grillo, or maybe we can get the town lawyer involved, because it's complicated how to remove somebody from the registry. That's the problem. If you go to remove somebody, it's complicated. It's not a simple thing. So we need someone in the town, oh, maybe somebody on the committee here, make a resolution to set aside some money and make it mandatory that our town is the leader in the state of New Jersey, that we're cleaning up our voter registry. That'd be cool. I think there'd be a lot of people interested in that. Also, it's important. I went to the planning board meeting. I've been to a lot of meetings in life, and there's a thing called the good old boys. And I went to that meeting and it was the good old boys. Okay, who's gonna be the chairman? Oh, I know who. Let's keep the same person. Who's gonna be the co-chairman? Oh, let's keep the same person. Never to consider other people there. It's kind of like the good old boys. And a lot of people tonight talked about the good old boys in the historic commission. You should bring some new faces in. Annette, you're the mayor now. It's important. Bring the community in. This town should be run by the people that live here, not by people that live out of town. What does that mean? That there's outside influences that take place. That's what they do. They call you on their phone and they say, hey, we have a good idea. Oh, really? If I was the mayor, I would say, I don't want anybody's idea. We got enough smart people in this town. Any ideas I want to hear? I want to hear from the town residents. Anyway, my time's up. Thank you very much. Let's have a good year.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room? Okay.
One online.
Hi, Ms. Best.
Hi, sorry that I can't be in person. Hi, everybody. I just wanted to say hello, and I wanted to, I really thought about last week's or the couple weeks ago meeting, and particularly what Tara said about kindness. And I actually have a different attitude, and I'm going to really work on actually being nice and more polite than I have been and less aggressive. But sometimes I have to be because I have to talk quick. So sorry about that. So it really hit home for me. Okay. And I thank you, Tara, for that input. And one of the things that I just want to point out, why sometimes people get frustrated, angry, sad, or talk with a lot of force, maybe sometimes venom or not, is because people are just nice, not kind. And there's a difference between niceness and kindness. And so being nice is being polite, face value. Like I have my polite persona on tonight, and I'm going to keep my jaw stiff and, not show a lot of emotion. And that's great. And we all have to try to strive for that. But kindness is about expressing your compassion towards other people through your actions and through actually helping and assisting people. So I don't think that our current government, and I'm not singling out anybody, is always so kind, because I really haven't seen a lot of people being assisted throughout the last year and a half. And so it's just something I wanted to point out. But regardless, I'm going to try to be more polite and nice. Okay. So I just wanted to do that. And I didn't mean to, if I came across as being sarcastic, I'm really going to work on that. Okay. So that was just something I wanted to point out. I just had a couple questions tonight, and whoever feels like answering them would be awesome. One of the things I wanted to ask you is, how do you appeal a land grading permit? Because there's only a code or directional indications for how to appeal it from the forestry department only, but land grading permits often go through engineering, zoning, building, and the forestry department, depending on the scale of the project. Like somebody's just land grading and not doing a patio, it might not go through building. So there's no clear-cut process. I was told by engineering that they don't have a clear-cut process for that, because I need to know when a particular permit is being approved for 36 Martindale Road, because it impacts my trees. They're going to cut and construct within millimeters of the tree trunks, and that's very concerning to me. It violates the township tree code. So I'm just putting that out there. I am sending out some letters to everybody this week about it, so be on the lookout. And I will also try to copy the township committee, because it is a big issue. And it also really talks to the bigger issue as to why things kind of get blown off or looked at kind of loosely. And that's something I'm hoping to work on with the help of the committee. The other thing I want to just bring up, and this is just not a criticism, it is about the consideration of the JFK property, moving the town dump slash recycling, whatever you want to call it over there, or possibly a playing field in that. You know, I was looking at the river that runs behind there. I don't know if this is a Rahway River, I think it is. And then, you know, the fact that our water supply is behind there and it's all wetlands. I hope that we're really thinking about the possible environmental disaster that could be, putting a town dump and a playing field that leaches out plastics because they want to use all the rubber materials next to our drinking supply and other towns' drinking supplies. So I just want to put that on everybody's radar. Maybe you thought about it. And then also, maybe Alex can answer this. What is the process of firing a contractor that the town hired? Because I want to look at the possibility of firing Sefeli & Sons because of the terrible work that they did on Campbell Road and also on Fairfield Drive, which is in my neighborhood. I definitely don't want my road curb done on Fairfield Terrace next spring by that company. And then enforcement of, the cleanup enforcement of our roads. Can somebody please clean up the bottom of Fairfield Drive? I'm going to send you guys all a video so you can see how disgusting it is. All the stuff that Sefeli & Sons and PSE&G left all landslid down and is clogging all the drains in front of those two houses. And that's it. So I thank you for my time, and I appreciate your consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annette.
Thank you. That's it.
We have two more.
Okay. Hello, Ms. Feld.
Oh, there I am. Well, good evening. Before we start, I just want to say that the last time I spoke on Zoom, which was a few weeks ago, when I finished speaking and then I expected to get back on Zoom and watch the rest of the meeting, I got a message that said you can't get back in. And I'd never had that before. So if somebody, the gentleman in charge tonight wasn't there that night, so maybe, I'm sorry, I'm just getting over COVID. And this cough won't go away, but if you can make sure that I get back in the meeting, I'd be very grateful. So now I only have two other things to say. First, I want to address Annette, Mayor Annette Romano, and tell you how impressed I am that you're willing to step down from your role running the Democratic Party locally. When I first joined the local party 5 years ago, I was impressed with you, and I thought that you were the Democratic Party. And so the fact that you're stepping away a little bit, I can't tell you how that impresses me. It's really something. So thank you from me and a lot of other people. Now, the other thing I have to say, Diane Eagle got up and spoke very eloquently with a lot of numbers about why she believes, and I agree with her, that $7.5 million is an outrageous amount of money to hand over to the paper mill. We love the paper mill. It's wonderful for the town. I don't have all the numbers about what it gives us. It's just goodwill. But $7.5 million in this town, when we need to fix all of our old plant, your building and the fire, the police, maybe even Bauer and other things that need to be done for millions of dollars. I want you to please continue to consider that $7.5 million is just too much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Please put me back in the meeting though.
Nobody else at this point.
Okay, great. I will now close the public comment period. Consent agenda resolutions. The Township Committee will now consider consent. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. We'll respond to public comment. Totally forgot. Committeeman Stoller, would you like to respond?
Sure. I have a few points. First, Mr. Henning, thank you for your service to our country. On HPC, we ran on transparency, we ran on professionalism and making good decisions. We need to understand that the TC approves, or his position is to look at what the HPC brings to us. But the appointments that are made long-term or even short-term are the benefit of knowledge that is brought by the people who are being on that board. Allison has a lot of experience, a lot of background, but I'm open for transparency on how boards are picked. Mr. Elephant was very eloquent in his request, and I think that, transparency is always good in terms of how these boards are picked. And I think Mr. Cohen earlier also expressed an interest to make sure that all the boards and all of the committees are picked by consensus. And I think that's something we're going to live up to. It was funny seeing Mr. Schilling. I guess he left, but he's legendary in my marketplace. Chris Drucker knows. He made some really good calls in his time on inflation and on the oil markets. I'll let, I believe, Frank, you're on the Environmental Commission. So I'll let you talk to that, but leaf blowers are definitely on the agenda for environmental. Thank you.
Yeah, I just reiterate what Mr. Stoller said. I mean, we met as a group and went through the public the volunteer interest forms. They were accepted for us into an Excel spreadsheet. Perhaps, I guess the process is people are notified when they're picked, but they're not notified when they're not picked because as I understand it, the application remains in the database for a year. And so if another vacancy comes up, it's the same set of people to look at, plus any ones that came in, afterward. So I don't know if, I think it'd be a lot of work to just in January notify every single person who put in a volunteer interest form and was not picked. That's that's just a fair amount of work on the clerk. But in any event, we did look at all of them. We looked at, they weren't edited or censored in any way. We read the notes that you put in as explaining why you wanted to be on the board. And in various cases, they were people we knew. We read the notes and we understood the qualifications. We talked to the chair for existing members to make sure that the people were contributing and attending and providing value to the committee. And if so, we kept them. And as for the planning board, Mr. Seibert, there was nothing that stopped anybody else from being nominated. Those were the two people that were nominated and they were elected unanimously. So the chair and the vice chair, the chair runs the meetings, but again, unlike even the mayor, the chair has no additional responsibilities other than it's the same as the other 8 members of the board. She runs the meeting, she keeps things in order, but that's it. Her vote is the same, and sometimes she's on the winning side and sometimes she's on the losing side. But she's the one that wanted it, and people were happy with the way that she ran the meetings, and that was really the only criteria that I used when I voted to keep her in place.
Deputy Mayor Second.
So there were a number of comments with regards to how members were picked for various boards and committees. And as was said by some of the others up here on this dais, we did meet as a group. We're actually in a unique position that we could do that since Ben and I were not sworn in. We were able to meet in a group, and we looked through the volunteer interest forms and we picked the individuals that we came to consensus on that we felt were the most qualified for the various positions. There were a lot of people that applied for various boards and commissions. Some people, had detailed qualifications. Some people submitted something as simple as life experience. So we picked the best people that we could come to consensus on for these boards. The other thing that we have to keep in mind when we're considering applicants for the boards is that they're going to be representing 22,000 people in town. And while there is a small and vocal minority that feels that, you know, maybe they should have had a spot on the board, et cetera. We have to keep in mind that these individuals have to represent everyone in town. So we can't just, you know, pick people from specific neighborhoods just because they're from a specific neighborhood. And I say that with regards to some of the comments about the HPC. Next, there's a gentleman, I think Mr. Schilling, who spoke about leaf blowers. That is something that I think there is consensus on to do something about. The question is, you know, how to go about that. And I think the most appropriate way to deal with that is to have that go to the Environmental Commission, have them study it. I know that a number of other towns have put in gas leaf blower bans, and some of those towns are getting sued as a result. And you know, we really have to take a look at what impact it'll have on the local businesses and figure out how to responsibly phase in a ban if that's what the Environmental Commission were to recommend. There have been a couple comments with regard to the paper mill playhouse funding. It's my understanding there's still public information sessions out there, and then I think there's definitely going to be some more discussion you know, amongst the people up here on this dais. It is a very large ask, I agree. And you know, I think that's something that we will analyze and figure out, you know, what's actually needed before we ultimately vote on something. Ms. Best, you brought up a question about what the process is for getting rid of a contractor that the town hires. And there were some complaints about Fairfield Terrace. Perhaps perhaps Alex could go into those in a moment, because I have heard numerous complaints about Fairfield Drive, and hopefully there's something that can be done about that. If that's all I had for now.
Thank you, Committeeman Rufus.
Yes, I just have one question, yes, for Alex. We don't have the ability, the Township Committee doesn't have the ability to nullify the HPC process of nomination, right? That's not, there's nothing that we can do at this point. If we wanted to, and we might, not everybody might want to, but if we wanted to, there's nothing that this board can do at this point.
Yes, it's the HBC's job.
So I just want to make that clear to the people who are questioning about that the Township Committee can't do anything at this point to nullify that process. But the HPC can, and that's where you should go to voice your concerns. All right, I'm good.
Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, but can I add on to that, please?
Sure.
To that point, anything that comes out of the HPC has to be approved by this township committee. Nothing will go through without us approving it or denying it. So that's kind of your safeguard, your rails.
And Mayor, if I may just add, the code provides that a member of the commission may, after a public hearing, be removed by this committee, but it must be for cause. So I just want to clarify that. So you would need cause, not just because somebody didn't like the process or you weren't happy with it, there would have to be cause. That's 803.1 in our 803.10 in our township code.
There is one other thing, there is an opening, right, on the HPC for an alternate?
Yes.
So there's still one opening on the HPC committee for 2024 as an alternate. So if you are interested in serving, please reach out to the committee members and let us know that you want to serve in that spot.
And I'd just like to add, you know, the HPC is a municipal land use board. And one of the functions of the HPC is to identify properties or, in some cases, portions of town that should be designated historic. And they make the recommendation. And as you know, Mr. Stoller pointed out, ultimately the TC, we are your elected representatives. We're the ones that will vote whether or not that designation goes through. So that is a check and a balance on the process right there. And we are currently working on looking at the HPC ordinance to see if there's modifications that need to be made to the process to allow for greater transparency and, you know, earlier notification to the public.
Mr. McDonald.
Yeah, just to speak to Fairfield Drive, the firing of a contractor. I feel like I've mentioned it at the meeting previously, but first and foremost, we can take a look at the bottom of Fairfield Drive and see whether there's anything that needs to be addressed or cleaned up there. With regard to the contractor, unfortunately, what we've encountered on Fairfield Drive is something that is completely out of our hands. In the fact that back when that community was built, it was provided underground power all the way up Fairfield Drive. Some of that power also sweeps into Martindale, sweeps into Fairfield Terrace underground. And while we were doing the construction project on Fairfield Drive and putting in new curbing, underground conduit was discovered 2 inches under the pavement. Now, if we would, we immediately alerted JCP&L, we asked them to come out, take a look, because this could be an issue that is prevalent along the entire stretch of that roadway. If we had run a milling machine on that road, we would have potentially severely injured or killed someone by doing that. JCP&L, as you know, is a utility, and they are working at their speed to address this issue and give us the information that we need to be able to move forward the contract. It is not Cefelli's, well, I can't speak to the workmanship and what Ms. Best may be concerned about, but certainly from the standpoint of what has been taking so long, that is the vast majority of the holdup. We are also going to be seeking from the Township Committee funding to be able to complete curb and drainage on Fairfield Terrace and Martindale from a separate contractor, potentially. It's local public contracts law, and it will be bid out, and the lowest responsible bidder will be awarded the contract. However, to provide a more complete project up there, as we've heard a lot of concern over the curb condition also in that area. And since those roads will be milled and paved by PSE&G in conjunction with Fairfield Drive, this will be just sort of the best way to create a succinct and complete project.
Mr. Cantor?
Mayor, I have nothing to add unless you or any of the committee members have any questions for me.
Excellent. Okay, great. Okay, the Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regards to any items listed on the consent agenda?
I just want to point out, Mr. Sacramento mentioned that we would be looking at the historic preservation ordinance. It's resolution 24044, which we're about to vote on, which will constitute the body that will actually be doing that. So after tonight, assuming it passes, which of course it will, that board will be formed and that work can begin.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-037 through resolution 24-047, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sacramento?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, a Green Acres application, Taylor Park Playground, 100 Main Street. Mr. Myers, Recreation Director, will provide an overview of the application and proposed project.
Good evening, everybody. So the Green Acres program recently announced its 2024 funding round, which includes funding for inclusive playgrounds. The NJDEP's goal is for this grant to fund as many inclusive playgrounds as possible in New Jersey. Grants will cover up to 75% of the total project costs, with a maximum of $750,000 per award. Our objective of this grant application involves replacing the current children's playground at Taylor Park with a new completely inclusive playground for children of all ages and abilities. An inclusive playground is carefully designed to promote play among children of differing abilities, ages, and communities. It gives children with and without any disability the same platform to play while breaking down barriers both physically and socially. So the playground structures that will be included will include the necessary equipment, ramps, shading, and quiet area that are required for a playground to be labeled as completely inclusive. So we are asking for the support and permission to submit an application for a $750,000 grant to help fund this new playground. We provided some documentation that's also available on our website. If anybody has any questions, I'd be glad to answer.
Are there any comments from the committee before we move to the public comment period?
Just to be clear, it's the total project would be $1 million. We would get $750,000 in grants, and then the town would pay the $250,000 remaining.
Correct.
Yeah, I have a question. On the grant, does the money come free and clear from the state, or are there any obligations for the town or for Taylor Park that must be open to New Jersey residents outside of Millburn as well?
Well, with Green Acres funding, projects has to be available to all residents. So with a playground, you know, it'll welcome residents from all over. You know, typically, you know,
Right, but the park would welcome residents from all over anyway.
Yeah.
Are there any additional restrictions or openings for the use of the park?
No, this is strictly for the area of the playground. Yeah.
Anyone else? I hereby open the public comment period on the Green Acres application and funding request. Speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris Drucker, and I'm Vice Chair of the Recreation Commission. And believe it or not, I was unanimously voted in. I've been on it with my chair for many, many years. And just a funny little comment, my kids are 40 and 36, and some of the playground stuff is still at Taylor Park playground. So I would hope the TC, you know, votes for us to, you know, vote. So our director here, Chris Myers, can go along with the funding. And also our recreation department, the folks that are there do an unbelievable yeoman's job. You know, they are extremely understaffed. Just for Summit has around 11 or 12 people in their recreation department. We have 5. So we are, you know, we need to really look at, you know, hiring, you know, qualified people, because nothing for nothing, as they say, you know, our township's growing. So just, I hope you folks would consider that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Bill Kirsch, I'm a Millburn resident. I had a couple of questions. Sounds like a great idea. I really like seeing this. It says that the grants will cover up to 75%. So I don't know if anyone has an idea. Is the odds good that we'll get the full 750,000? Might it be $500,000? Do you have any idea about that yet?
I can answer that. Yeah, they're hoping to give 75% for all the applicants. It's a non-competitive grant application. So usually with Green Acres funding, it's competitive application. So when the sessions I've sat through with them, they're looking to give 75%.
Yeah, that's great. Another question I had was, have there been, I know after Ida, where there was tremendous flooding, there was a big problem with the playground, with the flooding off of Main Street. And I was just wondering, do we anticipate something like that happening again? Is there any part of the plan that's going to address possible flooding for the playground? Because it would be a shame to put in this beautiful new playground and have any kind of damage happen after that. So.
Do you want to go to the microphone?
Sure, sure.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
that would be good.
So the surface that we'd be looking to put down is poured in place rubber. So right now we have mulch over there, and the mulch you're referring to ended up in a lot of yards and backyards after Ida. So when it comes to the poured in place surface, well, mulch is considered ADA accessible, but it's not really inclusive accessible. You know, it's difficult for a wheelchair to go through mulch. It's actually difficult for those who are visually impaired. So when it comes to using the poured in place rubber surface, according to NJDEP regulations, as long as we maintain the same height as the current surface, the current grade, and as long as that surface is porous, then we're okay to replace with a different type of surfacing. So the hope would be that, you know, there's stone underneath that surface. So if there was flooding again, and if anything had to be repaired, it would be just underneath. You know, if there's gonna be any type of flooding, that there may need to be repairs, but hopefully it wouldn't be like it was when we lost all the mulch from that last big storm.
Charlie Bambara, Melbourne Short Hills resident. 2 points, one in proceeding with this project, don't forget about the parking on the street there. If we're gonna have an accessible park, we need accessible parking adjacent to it. I'm sure that's part of the plan. Secondly, I think I'm the only member of the Flood Mitigation Committee that's here tonight. So to address your concern, we definitely are looking at mitigating flooding in Taylor Park. That's part of the grand plan. So it may take some time to implement projects, but at the end of the day, I don't believe that's going to continue to be a problem. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll just address the first part. So the plan would be to add a handicap accessible parking spot near the entrance of the playground. That's also a requirement. So we would be looking to add that on the Main Street area next to the entrance.
Just one?
I'll have to talk to the engineering department, but as many as we would need. So, but
Is not good.
yeah.
Good evening, Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. I'm not opposed to this particular project, but you know, this application for funding just brought something up to my mind that I had asked last year, which is there's a lot of projects that are going on in town, and the idea of spending $250,000 is just hard to sort of put that in perspective. I know last year there was talk about renovating the Rose Garden, and it started out at I think 1.8 million, and then the committee ended up giving 300,000. Don't remember, don't quote me, I could be wrong. It's just hard to make sort of these decisions in terms of trade-offs, as in terms of what projects are coming down the pipeline, how much to spend on what. Is there any sort of comprehensive sort of long-term budgeting plan to say, hey, there's these 10 things that we need to do in town. These are the expected costs. It's just hard to I'm not opposed to this project. I want to make that very clear. It's just putting $250,000. I just don't know like where that number came from in some sense. So just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jay Morielli, resident. I fully support the plan. And it sounds like there is a plan. So I guess my question is that available publicly now? It's right there?
Yeah, it's on our website.
Fabulous, thank you.
It's a draft, so obviously if we're awarded the grant, we would have a finalized. The colors are not the colors I would pick, so I just want to make that clear. So.
No comment on the colors. And I assume any work that will be done, that goes out, will be put out for bid and follow a full process. And I will agree with Dr. Kung and saying in terms of all of the spending that the town is contemplating, it would be great to put together, here are the 10 things that are being asked for. Solicit public input on the priority of those, from the paper mill down through renovating town hall, through additional fields, and let the public speak. I think this was a key component of the a lot of campaigning last year, of a lot of public discourse. So now is the chance, beginning of the year, put together the top 10, 12 budget items, ask people in the community for their thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are there slides on those?
I believe they're on the website.
Yeah, very good website.
They're on the township website. You can come on.
Hi, my name is Adrienne Topping. I've been a resident of Melbourne for almost 30 years.
and I've been the director of the Milburn Co-op for 20. I got to work with Bob Hogan when he redid the last playground renovation. I'm in the playground every single day for 20 years or weekday at least. I'm happy to be a part of the committee to, give my opinion on types of equipment that are useful that kids really go to, or in any way that I can be helpful to the project. Thanks.
Thank you.
We would welcome you.
Thanks.
Is there anyone online?
We have one online.
Hey, guys, just had a couple of comments and my apologies if I didn't see the deck. Was the deck available before this meeting anywhere to review prior to public comment?
On our website for a few weeks.
Yes, it's on the website.
And
It's
it
on the-
was-
Okay,
it's on the recreation
The
page.
public hearing we sent out about this was.
Okay, I didn't know, because I saw that massive deck Grampetto did for the public spaces that was huge, and I just assumed it was part of that, but I couldn't find it in there, so my apologies if I asked questions that you've already addressed. I think the only thing that I want to put out there is there's I'm assuming you're using some type of rubber surface to make it more ADA compatible, like you had suggested, which makes sense also as it relates to the funding. But there's also some new material out there. It's some type of I guess processed wood that has been found to be less toxic, and there is a lot of lead in that rubber crumb and some of that rubber material, and more teams are not using it or banning it in other countries. And again, I think this should be run by the Environmental Commission because it is next to a waterway that does flood. And until we can get the flood mitigation under, sort of under control, you don't want that leaching into waterways. And you could get sued by the DEP or the state of New Jersey. So that was just a call out. I'm very excited about this project. And again, going back to what Jerry had suggested, I do think it has to be looked at as part of the overall open space plan that Grampetto has worked so hard on, just because there's so many initiatives and ideas in that plan, and there's only so much money to go around, and you have to really look at the demographics of the town and who, obviously most people want playgrounds, and I'm not saying that it shouldn't be improved, but prioritization, of course. And I'm sure you guys know that already. So that was really my only comment. I'm very excited. I'm sure you guys worked really hard on it. So that's it.
Thank you.
I don't believe we have any other comments.
And Chris, can we assume too that this is being prioritized as a result of the grant being available, right?
Correct, yeah.
That, while this might not have been something that we had in our capital plan initially for 2024, it is now as a result of this funding becoming available.
Yep.
Thank you.
And did you say when it's gonna be, if we get the grant, when is it
Oh,
expected to be completed?
The applications are due February 7th. So as soon as we find out, if we receive an award, we'll have to go from there.
And just to be clear for the public and for ourselves up here, the grants for $750,000 against $1 million cost of the playground, which is ADA compliant unitary surface. So the most that the town would come up with $250,000, with $750,000 provided by the state of New Jersey as a grant, or the Green Acres, correct?
Yep. And just let everyone know, we're not married to the material. Let us get the grant, the funding first, and then, we could go from there.
I hereby close the public comment period. Are there any final comments from the committee on this matter of resolution 24-048?
I have a question. So if we apply for the grant and we get the grant, and for some reason, it's a public outcry against it, do we have the option of not moving forward with it, or are we committing to
we have the option of not moving forward with it.
Okay,
There are other Green Acres projects, I know in other towns that they don't move forward with it, and then the funding is returned essentially.
Okay, so to be clear then, what we're doing is we're voting on whether you guys can go ahead and apply for this grant.
Yep.
To see if we even get the grant, because we might not.
And all my years of being on the rec commission, the township has a time limit, friend. So we have to go forward in a timely manner. Sure. That's just, otherwise we lose it.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-048?
Motion.
And may I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote?
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, ordinance 2657-24, Mr. Cohen is scheduled for sponsor.
Okay, I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance 2657-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn development regulations and zoning ordinance. And what this ordinance does is it extends, it actually started, I guess, with a comment made by Mr. Bambara about prohibiting gun shops, and I guess when
That was another gentleman.
oh, it was you. I'm sorry. I thought it was you. Okay, sorry. Mr. Kirsch, sorry. And so, we've looked at it, and in addition to that, there are several other uses that would then be prohibited. We had previously prohibited cannabis establishments, and now it will add into that check cashing stores, pawn shops, rooming and boarding houses, sexually oriented businesses, slaughterhouses, smoke shops, tattoo parlors, gun shops, and then again, anything else not expressly allowed is prohibited. So that's the purpose of the ordinance. I move that the ordinance be taken up and passed on the first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, February 6th.
May I have a second?
Second.
May I have roll call vote, please?
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ordinance 2658-24, Deputy Mayor Sakamandy, you are scheduled to sponsor.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2658-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. And I believe we have Mr. Petto here to speak a little bit more about the ordinance.
Sure. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Mayor, Deputy Mayor, members of the Township Committee. Grant Petto, serving here this evening as Township Planner. So the ordinance before you this evening was requested to be looked at and developed for the Township. This is an ordinance to supplement the demolition regulations contained within the historic preservation section of the ordinance. It is applicable to extension of review for applications for total demolition, for complete demolition of a dwelling or building within a historic district or potentially historic property that's been surveyed by the State Historic Preservation Office for historic worthiness. The demolition review would require a supplemental application to the HPC for review of the demolition and advice and direction back to the construction code official as to whether the demolition can proceed or not. This is an ordinance that is in place in other communities. This is modeled after the Montclair Demolition Review Ordinance, which was adopted following the loss of two prominent historic homes in the town that were not encumbered by historic preservation protection. And as I said, this is applicable solely to total demolition. So other modifications to properties, that's governed separately for local landmarks. This is just applicable to total demolition if you're removing the entire structure. Happy to answer any questions should anyone have.
So just to get some clarification, if you have a property that's in a area that has not been designated historic, but that property is listed in the historic element of the master plan, let's say it was built in like the 1800s and you want to demolish the whole thing, what this would do is then require that to go to the HPC for review before it can be demolished.
If the property has been surveyed and evaluated as well. So it needs to be listed and identified as a potential historic resource in the master plan. And also a survey's been conducted to identify its historic worthiness or whether it's potential historic value.
Makes sense. Thank you.
The survey has to be conducted as well, or does the survey get conducted as when you decide you want to demolish your house?
The survey needs to be conducted in advance of the demolition application permit. So properties that have not yet been surveyed would not be subject to this. And this advances the work that the Historic Preservation Commission is empowered to do in surveying properties and taking a look at properties for their value with respect to historic preservation.
What percentage of homes in Milburn Short Hills have been surveyed to date?
I don't have that figured specifically off the top of my head, but that's something that I could certainly, coordinate with the HPC consultant and provide that figure at the second reading for the public hearing for your consideration. Any other questions?
No, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, February 6th, 2024.
May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prufus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
I just want to add that these ordinances are going to be referred to the planning board also for their review.
Yes.
Okay, old business, the redevelopment agreement, 9 Main Street. Mr. Cantor, do you want to?
Thank you, Mayor. It's my understanding the redevelopment agreement remains in draft form. The issues that were at issue in December remain at issue despite good faith negotiations on behalf of the township. I have no really further update on the redevelopment agreement. It's not listed on the agenda tonight. It was not listed on the agenda tonight as it remains in draft form.
Okay, is there no other old business? New business, Deputy Mayor Sakamandy, you wanted to talk about a police blotter.
Yes, so on Sunday, January 7th, 7 neighborhood watch groups led by Raquel DiPerno of the Poets Watch held an information session at the Milburn Short Hills Volunteer First Aid Squad building. There was a good turnout with more than 50 residents. Ben and myself were in the audience. Sergeant Barbosa did an excellent job of explaining many of the measures that residents can put in place to prevent themselves from being victims of car thefts and home burglaries. It's clear that many of our residents are concerned about crime. We need accurate and transparent reporting of crimes that are occurring. Outside of using Oprah, the public can only rely on police blotters and the KPIs that include the number of car burglaries, car thefts, and home burglaries. Currently, the KPIs have not been updated since August, and the most recent police blotter is from almost 20 days ago. The police blotters that were first published last year were notably missing several car thefts that we only became aware of after investigating discrepancies between the KPIs and the police blotters. After speaking with a resident and voter in town, we realized that a stolen Bentley was even missing from the blotters. Now, I understand that the blotters are not a comprehensive listing of all the crime that happens in town, but I would expect that any auto theft from a residence should be reported. Furthermore, it was noted last year that if the perpetrator breaks into your home, steals car keys, and then takes off with your car, that's considered a home burglary for KPI purposes, and it doesn't count towards an auto theft. I think it should count as both, or maybe we need to have a special category in the KPIs that say, a home invasion and car theft. There's various ways you could break this down, but I think what we want to do is have the public be aware of what's going on, because there's a lot of things that need to change on a state level, catch and release laws, et cetera. And the best way to get that to happen is for the public in this town to be as aware as possible of all the crime that's going on. My hope is that once they're aware, they'll become outraged and will contact their assemblymen and women and their state senators to try and get change. I know that Mr. Stoller and I have met with the police chief, and while they're doing a fantastic job, they're doing all they can. we need to get the laws changed at a state level. And doing that starts with greater awareness to the public. So what I would like to see is more frequent police blotter releases and more complete police blotter releases. I also think that the KPIs need to be updated on a much more regular basis. There's no reason that they haven't been updated since August. So I think that we can do better there, and I think the public will appreciate that level of transparency.
Mr. McDonald, do you want to add anything, or I don't know, like what the process is, or?
No, I mean, I can't disagree with regard to the KPIs. I appreciate that, and we'll look into that. In terms of the cadence of the police blotter, I think, as I understand it now, it's every 2 weeks. Are you looking for something more frequent than that?
I think weekly would be good if we could. That also would, if it's every 2 weeks, you report on everything or all the auto thefts, that could be quite long. If you do it every week, it'll be a little bit smaller and manageable for people to digest. I think, waiting 2 weeks to find out about an incident that may have occurred in your neighborhood is too long of a wait. So weekly would be an improvement.
Sure. And then I will discuss with the police chief as well regarding because again, as they count, and we had discussed this, as they count home burglaries as a home burglary rather than a home burglary and a car theft. That is for what they report to those entities bigger than them in terms of crime statistics. But certainly from a KPI perspective, perhaps that's something we can add to our list. So we can go back to them with that. So I'll talk about the cadence and in particular this combined stat. Okay.
It also gives us a measuring stick for improvement as well, right? And by no way is this meant to impugn the service that the police are offering, because they're doing a fantastic job, but it gives us information, and data is power, so we're able to measure it, improve it, see the improvement, et cetera, et cetera.
It would also potentially be interesting if, as a KPI, they could track how many cars are actually recovered. Because it is in there.
But again, it needs to be updated.
Yes.
And also townwide traffic study.
Yes, so this came up at the reorg meeting. There was a gentleman that came in and brought up some issues about traffic in the Washington section. And at that meeting, I had suggested that, maybe in a future meeting, we look into the possibility of doing a holistic or townwide traffic study. Now, obviously, that doesn't mean that we can put, traffic counters on every single street, but I think that there's probably a way to do a more holistic traffic study than what's been done in the past. Because it's my understanding a lot of the traffic studies that have been done to date have been for, specific development. So like, for example, when the Andy Says came before the planning board, they had to do a traffic study, and that was focused around that immediate area. With all of the development that we have either underway or scheduled to start soon, I think it would make sense if we did a holistic study so that we can understand how traffic flows throughout the town. I think it should be done during peak time, so we should look at, the school rush hours, the work rush hours, and, the winter when more people are not on vacation or actually here in town would be a good time to do one of those studies. And I think that, we should start looking into what the cost of something like that would be so that we can decide if that's something we want to do. Because I think a lot of people in town are frustrated with traffic and it's only going to get worse. So it's best that we understand it now, and then we can figure out how, any additional developments might play into that.
And, don't call me old fashioned, but it seems that traffic studies done in the past may have been done during COVID or during the summer, where you may not have a true reflection of the moving traffic patterns through town. And to me, that poses a problem, especially during the planning process for Annie Says, when you may not be getting a true reflection of what's going to happen during the town. So I think when you do these studies, it should be reflective of business hours during school times where we can get a true reflection of what's actually transpiring on our streets.
And there's no work going on.
When's that?
Do you have any thoughts?
I mean, I guess I would just ask in terms of a little bit of clarification is, are you generally concerned or focused on the commercial district, like the downtown, Upper Milburn Avenue, things like that? Or are we talking about, secondary and tertiary streets as well in terms of a holistic traffic study? Because back in 2006, which obviously means nothing today, but we did do a traffic study of the entire downtown. It was Mazer, I think it was about a 200-page document that they took a holistic look at the downtown. And I guess my question is it that maybe replicated in several different areas, or looking at everything all at once and how these sections of town connect, in particular where development and most of the congestion does take place?
I think the latter of the two makes sense because, I think that what we'll find is that if you have certain conditions that cause delays in one section of town, that can have an effect in other parts of town, and we ought to understand what that is. And the hope is that this comprehensive traffic study could then be used so that when we do have a new building that's coming online, maybe they could take a look at this study, look at the data, and then figure out how their planned development might impact things on a more holistic basis. Whereas right now, they tend to do a traffic study for the immediate surrounding area, and that doesn't necessarily show what the downstream impacts are necessarily going to be in other parts of town.
Correct, and the tax-paying residents who want to get, and literally it took me close to 28 minutes to get from Wawa to my home on Wyoming, coming through downtown the other day, a week and a half ago. I mean, there was backups all the ways through town. It was crazy, and I think there was something going on where it comes to that bottleneck at the Wells Fargo, the new Wells Fargo. There's a bottleneck of some sort, and then there's bottlenecks all through town, but just getting a feel for what that traffic looks like. And God forbid you have to come down Old Short Hills Road now during the middle of the day. It's a horror show.
And additionally, as part of that, maybe they can look at making recommendations for modifying light timings, or if they find, if we had a stop sign here, that would help, with the flow of traffic. I think there's probably things that can be done to improve traffic in town, but we need to first have the data in order to be able to make any, recommendations or improvements.
So how does this fit in, I'm just like, how does this fit in with are you suggesting that we just stop and like halt the two-way on Essex, or to do this, like it doesn't?
Well, that's a good point. When does that start? Because I think that will alleviate some of the congestion.
Well,
We still have the final piece, yeah.
right, is soon,
It's probably gonna be in early February, yes.
early February, from that last public session to then go on, and I kind of wanted, I don't think we need to make a decision at some point, whether that's gonna move forward or not, because a lot of time and a lot of money has been spent, and it just some kind of conclusion, and then maybe it just gets tabled to do this larger townwide traffic study, or maybe it doesn't, but at some point.
Or the traffic study, if we're gonna go ahead with it, then the traffic study should be done,
Well, that can include that,
Yeah,
right, exactly, so I just didn't know if you were saying what you're saying about the two-way, and I think we need to talk about it because to figure out what to do with it.
Well, so it's
in relationship to this.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the two-way traffic proposal, they're specifically starting with Essex Street because it would be easy to undo that in the future if we had to. It's a lot less expensive than starting.
Right, there's no construction.
Exactly. So
Or major construction on the road.
so maybe what we do is, if that moves forward, then we do the comprehensive traffic study. And hopefully we'll see if that has improved or alleviated things, or heaven forbid, if it made it worse in some way.
Cause problems.
Or cause problems. But I don't wanna hold that up for this study. I think this is a good opportunity, since we're gonna have to do a study to see if that's effective anyway, to just have that be a more comprehensive study.
So then the study wouldn't go into effect, or you would do like a pre-study before we do it, and then after to measure?
You could do that if you wanted to capture the effectiveness of the change. But if that is up in February for a vote, what is the implementation timeline look for that?
We haven't gotten, I mean, we don't know, we haven't had that, we're not there yet.
Right,
That's
well,
just kind of-
I think what we want to do in order to make a decision around that time is we need to get a estimate for what something like this would cost.
Right.
And I know that process can take a little while, so let's start that process now, so that way when we do vote on the two-way traffic and that's ultimately done, we can say, all right, this is how much it'll cost to do it, we decide to do it or not. But that way we don't, have that happen and then have to wait several months to get an estimate.
Oh, you mean to get the estimate on the town-wide?
Yes.
Just to start that process of
Yes, we
seeing,
should start that process,
does
because I know
it,
it takes a
right,
while, and we have to look at vendors, et cetera.
and then we'll continue to look at the two-way
Exactly.
as well on Essex. And have
That's a
another,
good
just so
start.
the public knows, have another public presentation
Right.
on
Mhm.
the comments that were incorporated from the last one.
Right. But just to be clear on the scope of it, we're not talking about necessarily, because when you say holistic, you're talking about the main arteries of the township, not, what traffic's like on, Fairfield Drive and Fairfield Terrace, right? Like,
Yeah, I would think the major streets and arteries, I wouldn't say that it's every double yellow line
Yeah.
road, but maybe we could take a look at a map.
but
and
there's
see
like
what
a
would make sense.
radius that I
Right.
think it would incorporate to include some South Mountain, some like Wyoming, things like that are generally the more trafficky areas.
Yeah, there's a roadway classification map in the master plan that has that classification scheme.
And again, part of this would be to figure out what parts of town would be included in that study, but again, all these things take time. It's still January, we should start that process, because these things do take time.
Right, and there's, we've heard over the last 3 years, a lot of the feedback from the South Mountain residents of cut throughs and things along those lines too, which I think need to be addressed because, not to impugn myself, but you need to go through to 22 or somewhere along those lines, you're gonna cut through. So understanding the cut throughs and South Mountain is the Washington section as well. And I tell you, the big kudos to the police station, to the police officers as well. They've been setting up, police officers in certain areas. I'm not gonna give away their spots, but on Wyoming and in South Mountain, and as well as in other parts of town, and really handing out tickets, which is very helpful.
Okay, may I have a motion to adjourn this meeting?
Yes.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
All right.
Good night, everybody.